Welcome to the Russ Joy Show. I'm sure you figured that out because you're smart. It's also the name of the show. I also realized that the camera's not straight. It's going to bother me. It's going to bother me this whole time unless I fix it. Do I fix it? I think I might fix it. I'm not positive. I think I might. I'm going to put the comments over here and say hello to everybody out there. It is a marvelous day. It is a wonderful Wednesday, and we're 1 week away from Christmas Eve. We are 8 days away from Christmas Day, a magical time. I think tonight's the fourth night of Hanukkah for those who celebrate. Welcome on in. The holiday season means one thing. It's the holiday season. The holiday season. Let's see. What do we have? Ooh. Do we go candy canes? Candy canes and a little bit of tinsel around the side. Do we go, what's this one? Ooh. We get some little stockings. I don't know if I like that one as much. I think I might go with this one. I kind of like this one. I sort of dig it. Maybe. What can I put over here? You can put Santa there, a gingerbread man, but I can't move the box. See, this is a problem. I don't know if I like this. All right. Things I should worry about before the show. Hold on. I'm moving the camera. There we go. The slightest tweak of the camera is all it takes for me to feel at least slightly sane. All right. Well, it's been a weird day. It's been a very strange week. I don't know about you. I'd love to know in the comments. We all work in different fields, right? We all work in different sectors, public sector, private sector. We all do different things. I want to know, because I remember what it was like in the teaching days, right? When you get to this point of the year, it's just absolute chaos. It's like total survival mode. When it's the end of December and you're getting close to Christmas break, or as we call it in the very PC world, the winter break that just so happens to coincide with Christmas and New Year's. Like at that point, you're just kind of hanging on for dear life. You're not actually trying to like reinvent the wheel. The psycho teachers are trying to like fit in a final unit project or a unit test before the break so they can go home over the holidays and grade. Weirdos. But like where I'm at and where I am in life, it's very interesting because there are just a large number of people who like from other companies that I work with. They're like, I'm out of office until December 23rd. And then like they'll come back on December 23rd and then you'll get the out of office message. I'm out of office from the 24th until like January 5th. Please forward any concerns to blow. And I'm like, what are we doing here? We've got like, there's still 2 weeks left in the year, right? At least 2. I'll give everybody Christmas Eve, Christmas Day. You want to take off for Hanukkah? Take off for Hanukkah. You want to take off for Kwanzaa? Take off for Kwanzaa. Winter solstice gets your go. Go ahead, take off winter solstice. It's just wild. I wonder if it's just me. I wonder if it's just the industry that I work in. I don't know. A few things have happened in recent days that I wanted to update you on for no other reason than I thought they were kind of funny. I was in a work meeting yesterday with a company that we have not previously worked with. And I get to the end of the call and my name at work displays as Russell. And so I get to the end of the call and this guy looks at me and he goes, "Hey, Russ." And I was like, interesting. We just met. He goes, "Russ, I love Snow the Goalie. Listen to every episode in the podcast feed." And I was like, huh. This is somebody who's like part of a very big company. And I was like, it's just interesting. Feels like this year more than ever, there are more and more people listening to Snow the Goalie or watching and listening to the Russ Joy Show. And so I appreciate each and every one of you. We're very close. I consider 200 or so subscribers away, very close to getting to 2,000 subscribers. I do not expect to hit that in the next 14 days, but with your help, maybe we could. So I'm going to put out here, the show is free. Everything is free. Sometimes you have to deal with an ad on YouTube or the podcast feed, and for that, I'm sorry, but just reach out for a second. This is all I ask in this beautiful time of the year is for you to consider sending the link to this show to someone in your life. It could be a friend, a family member, an ex. I don't really care. If we can get to 2,000, it'd be pretty cool. And that is all. There's a lot to get to on today's show, but we're going to do it in a somewhat abbreviated fashion because, as you know, today is also a Wednesday. And what happens on Wednesday nights? Snow the Goalie goes on the road. So tonight we are at Chickies and Pete's in Drexel Hill. So if you want to come on out, you should. 6 o'clock, we'll be going live in Drexel Hill with a new episode of Snow the Goalie. And hey, it's not like there's any big news. It's not like the Flyers lost back-to-back shootouts and a home and home over the weekend. It's not as if they rebounded on Tuesday night and took down Le Canadien, Le Habitant de Montréal. It's not like that happened. It's not like Rasmus Ristolainen returned to the lineup and was throwing his body around, making some big old booming hits at center ice. But no, it's also not as if the Flyers got some really bad news today. Oh, wait, they did. So we are going to get into the bad news. And then tonight on Snow the Goalie, we'll delve further into it. I saw Anthony Sanfilippo put out a little teaser for tonight's show. Tyson Foerster, though. Tyson Foerster is out 5 months. I mean, let's start there. That is the big news of the day. Depending on which team and teams you like to follow in the greater Philadelphia area, I would say this is probably the most impactful story of the day. There are a couple of other ones. There's some Phillies news of Phillies signing and such. But we got to go out to the Philadelphia Flyers because a guy who is having an absolutely incredible season up until his most recent injury, this pretty much feels like it's it, unless the Fly guys are about to go on a nice old deep playoff run. This came out earlier today. We'll take the comments down for a sec. Earlier today, the Philadelphia Flyers tweeted out the following: injury update. After further medical consultation and diagnostic testing, Philadelphia Flyers forward Tyson Foerster underwent successful surgery on his arm on Monday, December 15th. Foerster is expected to make a full recovery and will be out 5 months. So, obviously, you just do a little bit of mental math here. That would mean that he would be out until mid-May. The Flyers are not currently scheduled to have games into mid-May. And unless they are going to go on quite the playoff run, they probably will not be playing in mid-May, which means that for all intents and purposes, Tyson Foerster's season is over. And it's a shame on a lot of levels, right? On one level, you feel bad because it's a young guy who was in the midst of what I would consider to be very close to a breakout season. It's a guy who, over the course of the offseason, remember there was the issue with, was it the bicep? Was it the tricep? There was an infection in the elbow. How did that happen? There was all kinds of back and forth. I thought that maybe there was going to have to be some kind of a corrective surgery. Was there a clean out? There were a lot of questions around Tyson Foerster in the offseason. He rejoined the team very late in the summer, early fall. And he put together a really nice stretch of games for the Flyers this season. He put up 13 points over 21 games, including 10 goals. So, like, when you're looking around and you're saying, hey, there's a lot of playmakers here, you brought in a guy in Trevor Zegras who's a real playmaker. You brought him in. He's more of an assist guy, a setup guy than necessarily a goal scorer. You, of course, have Matvei Michkov, who you want to be a goal scorer, who's also kind of found some assists along the way as well. Travis Konechny, oddly enough, has been more of a facilitator than a scorer this season. Sean Couturier naturally is more of a guy who can help to set up and can help create in some ways, more so than be a goal scorer. You look at a guy like Owen Tippett, who's all over the place and pretty erratic. He can score goals in bunches and then go very cold. This team needed a guy who game in and game out is a legitimate goal-scoring threat. Tyson Foerster very clearly was getting to that point. I mean, he had a goal in every other game virtually, right? 10 goals in 21 games. And now he's out, which is a catastrophic blow for this team. It's not an insurmountable issue, but it is a catastrophic blow. Insofar as I think up until this week, the belief was that Foerster would eventually return to the lineup, and the hope would be that maybe by January he would. At the very worst, maybe coming back out of the Olympic break in February, and you'd have him, and it's almost like a trade acquisition, right? It's almost like a trade pickup to bring him back that late in the season. And in the meantime, you get to take a better look at Nikita Grabenkin. Maybe you would get to give a Carl Grundstrom a little bit more of a look, perhaps when you feel like they're ready, and Alex Bump or a Denver Barkey could maybe get a look here. And then obviously at the end of the season, the big hope and the big guy that everybody's kind of waiting for to come out of college and be done with Michigan State this year, Porter Martone, maybe he would get into the lineup. But all of this was kind of built around the idea that Foerster was going to be back. And very clearly, even if he weren't able to keep up that every other game pace, right? A goal every 2 games. I didn't think he was going to be a 40-goal scorer this year, but I do think that 30 was very clearly in the making for him. And he was a guy that was an impact player for this team. Now you can go back to early in the season, right? Where there was the Foerster, Cates, and Brink line that oddly enough was kind of playing as a de facto top line early in the season. And you could say, man, when those guys did get split up, Cates never looked quite as good without Foerster. Brink certainly didn't look as good without the other two. Foerster was really the guy that was the impact player on that line. And now to some extent, you've gotten to see what it looks like with Gurbankin in. I know he was out of the lineup for Nick Delorier to kind of go around and do Nick Delorier things on Tuesday night. But you're now in this like kind of weird spot where, all right, Carl Grundstrom comes in and he can kind of play. He looks maybe like he's an NHL player, but he's certainly not a 30-goal scoring threat. He's certainly not a guy with arguably the best shot on the team like Foerster. They don't really have a guy right now in the system who projects to be that guy. Does this maybe expedite the path to the NHL for a guy like Alex Bump? It might. Not saying that it will, though. See, there's this really weird thing that's been going on, and so I want to get to it, and I'll hop out to the comments in a little bit. But, man, this is a scenario where, like, if you're Alex Bump, now's the time to nut up with the Phantoms. Like, if there's a time for you to go on a real goal-scoring run, now is that time in Lehigh Valley. Force the Flyers to make that call-up. Make yourself undeniable so that you get the call-up. I mean, realistically, of all the guys that are down in the minors right now, Alex Bump is the guy who fits this lineup the best and is a guy who came into the offseason and into potentially the preseason, into camp, as a guy that a lot thought would potentially make the team out of camp. And then he didn't exactly have the best run, and so he ended up with the Phantoms. This is about as good of a scenario if you're an Alex Bump and you wanted to try to figure out a way to make it to the NHL sooner than later. Right now is your time. Listen, John Cena's time might be up, but, Alex Bump, your time is now. And so I guess it is probably worth just taking a goosey gander really quickly at how Alex Bump has been doing down with Lehigh Valley, up with Lehigh Valley. That's another question that I guess we could ask, right? Do we go geographically or do we go by level when it comes to up and down? Because Lehigh Valley is up, if you consider North up, but Lehigh Valley is also down in terms of league. Anyway, so this season, Alex Bump has 19 points in 25 games. He has 6 goals and 13 assists. By no means is that a bad set of stats. It doesn't exactly make you feel like he's lit the world on fire. I'm looking to see if I could find his game-by-game breakdown. Let me see if I can find his game log. I'll take a look here. If I can't find it shortly, I'll give up. I don't want to give up, though. John Cena gives up. John Cena looks into the camera and smiles and then taps out. I don't want to be that guy. I refuse to be that guy. We'll come back to it. We'll see if we can find the most recent stats for young Alex Bump. But this really does feel like it should be his time, as long as he can rise to the occasion. The Flyers aren't going to feel like they owe Alex Bump a call-up now that Foerster's out. Like, I don't necessarily think that this is a scenario where the Flyers sat back and said, well, if Tyson comes back here in the next month or so, we're going to keep Bump down and give him the opportunity to continue to develop and find his game in the AHL. But if he's out long-term, we're going to make the immediate call-up. I don't think it's what's going to happen. I do think, based on a few of the things that have kind of come out, based on a few of the things that have kind of popped up behind the scenes, it feels like the Flyers do not feel the urgency to bring up Bump until he's proven himself, or at least that was the case when Foerster initially got hurt. Now, I have not been down in the building for, a week or so, so I have not had the opportunity to poke around and harass some people who might be decision makers on the team to get a better feel for whether or not they feel so inclined to expedite that process of bringing Bump up to the NHL. But to me, that's your guy that, like, you hope is going to make a case. I still don't think you're going to see Alex Bump between now and the Christmas break. Again, I think they're going to require him or tell him, you've got to become undeniable for us to give you that legitimate look. Now, Denver Barkey's another guy who has had a pretty good season and has certainly turned a lot of heads with the Phantoms as well. However, I'm also not entirely sure that Barkey's going to be a guy that they're going to want to call up. Barkey's only 20 years old. He's a smaller player. I don't necessarily think that he fits the mold of exactly what they're going to look for right now. I've not gotten the sense from anybody with the Flyers that they are in a hurry to call up Denver Barkey either. Now, you can certainly look at his stats as well and say, all right, he's got 15 points in 25 games. Does that inspire a ton of confidence? Not necessarily. Does that mean that it's all over for him? No, it certainly doesn't. But I think you're probably going to see a lot of what you've been seeing. I think you're going to get a steady dose of Grundstrom. I think that you're probably going to, for better or worse. I mean, I hate the fact that Gurbankin got a look, didn't produce much points-wise, and found himself out of the lineup for Nick Delorier last night, but he has been given a chance, and he has not exactly taken advantage of that chance in the way that people like me had kind of hoped he would. So, in a weird spot. The real question is going to be whether or not this means Danny Briere is going to look to the trade market sooner. Before we get there, I'm going to go out to the comments here quick, and then we'll kind of reconvene and we'll talk about trades. Let's see. And we got to get to the Phillies a little bit later on. Jake Rogers 17 over on YouTube says, I wonder what the fans on Twitter will choose to complain about today. Constant screaming into the void. I assume that's about the Flyers. I think the Foerster thing is certainly worth being upset about. There's also something that I saw going around on Twitter from PHLY Flyers. I saw a thing that Bill and Charlie did, and I watched it, and I didn't find it particularly egregious, but then I've seen people just going in hard after those guys. So we might also play a little bit of that clip. I'm still trying to wrap my head around why people are as upset with them as they are. But by the way, we're going to go into the last remaining. I only had two. The last remaining Sheets Brothers coffees, chocolate peanut butter. We had one of these on the show like a week or so ago. I've also, by the way, taken to starting a new series over on my TikTok, not the Russ Joy Show TikTok, on my TikTok at Russ Joy, where I've been trying to make latte art. Today was day 3. I didn't put the video up yet, but I will. It got a little bit better today. I'm really struggling right now to make latte art. I can't get oat milk to froth the way that I want it to. I know that seems like a first world problem, and it probably is, but you know, if you live in the first world, you're going to have first world problems. All right, let's keep going over here. Havokin 45 says Risto looked rusty but played okay. He had some big banging hits out there. Let's see. Raymond Supper says what's tough is Tyson Foerster is the best 200-foot player for the Flyers by a large margin. I'd probably agree with that. He's been fantastic for them. It sucks to lose him. They could have allowed to they could have lost a few different guys and it wouldn't have been nearly as bad, but Foerster's about as bad of a player to have to lose. Andrew Fawcett's here says, greetings, everyone. Bring up Bump. I don't think it'll happen yet. Gimzak 12 says John Cena gave up like Obi-Wan in Star Wars, gave up so others could live. All right, so I know somebody's been listening to Bully Ray over on Busted Open. I see you, Gimzak. I see you. I have very conflicting thoughts on John Cena's tap out and the coming to peace with it smirk before tapping out. Maybe we'll talk about that later. We'll talk about it later this week. I'm not sure yet. Let's see. Fawcett also says, actually, I think they're pulling it together without any call-ups at the moment. Chris Freed says, Bump ain't ready. Jake with a point here. Thompson from Buffalo, could he be available? I can give you a little bit of context on a conversation that I had a week or two ago just about Buffalo. Thompson did not come up. Power and Byram both came up. So Buffalo is like this really interesting team, right? And I saw Chris Pronger tweeted at me, and I didn't respond to him because I don't know what to say. So I put a thing out after the Quinn Hughes trade went down that if Rasmus Dahlin becomes available, I fully expect that the Flyers are going to be in there with a really strong offer, because the difference between Quinn Hughes and Rasmus Dahlin, one of many differences, is that while we know Quinn Hughes is a free agent in 2027, Dahlin is under contract through 2031 at an $11 million AAV. If you go out and if Dahlin becomes available, you're getting a number one defenseman who's under contract for a long time. There's a certain amount of security there that you don't have otherwise. So I brought up Dahlin's name to somebody with the Flyers who would have an idea of whether or not they would kind of have an idea if Dahlin were available. And this person looked at me and was like, well, if he becomes available, then that's a conversation. So I don't think Dahlin is available right now, but other names came up. Thompson's did not, but Byram came up. Power came up. I don't get the feeling that the Flyers are really heavily interested in either of those players. Now, if Thompson becomes available, which seems to be like a pretty decent working theory that he might, okay, like we can have that conversation. Here's the big thing, though. Buffalo just made a change at GM. They brought in Yarmo. There's a thought out there. I saw Butcher Gross put out a thing last night of Tortorella eating a chicken parm and then tagged Buffalo, something from Buffalo Kitchens or something. So like there is this thought that with Yarmo going into Buffalo, could Torts come out of retirement, right? Could Torts end up being behind the bench for the Sabres? If you're Torts, I have no idea why you would want to take over the Sabres. I don't know. Like, unless you're just going for some win records, I don't know why you would leave a nice, cushy TV job at his age to go and like want to slam your head through the glass coaching Buffalo, but maybe he will. I'm not sure that the Flyers are going to be in a conversation right now about a trade with Buffalo, but anything could happen. We'll come back around to this in a little bit. Air Raiders 8535 says, let's not bring up anyone if we're just going to bench them when they make a mistake. Don't need Bump stapled next on the bench next to Michkov. Well, that'll actually be a very interesting conversation on tonight's Snow the Goalie at Chickies and Pete's in Drexel Hill, because I know that there is this narrative out there that, well, Michkov still is out of shape. And at some point, I think you just have to be willing to let a guy make mistakes and prove that he's not ready instead of doing whatever the hell they're trying to do right now, sheltering him or protecting him or just punitively deciding that he doesn't need to play in all situations, or he doesn't need to play in overtime, or he can't be leaned upon in late game situations because they're worried that he's going to commit a turnover or some bullshit. Michkov's got to play. Now, I tend to agree, though, if it comes to a bump or a barky, which, again, I don't think will happen before Christmas, but if a bump or a barky comes up, you better be willing, if you're Rick Tocchet, to allow those guys to play through mistakes because they're young and they're inexperienced at the NHL level, and they are going to make mistakes. And it can't be like you call them up and then they're playing one out of every 3 or 4 games like Rabenkin was. I also don't think that a bump or a barky should be playing on the 4th line. So are you really going to bring one of those guys up and put them right on the 3rd line? Like, I'm not so sure. We will see. Let's see. Ford is complaining that I skipped his comments because they don't make sense now. I missed them earlier. Here we go. We'll go back to this one when I asked about, whether or not work is busy or dull at this time. And he says that I've been busy oftentimes. This year end is slower. Not this year. It's been super busy. There you go. Ford's busy in HR and recruitment. So that's nice. Fawcett asks, how are the Beaver Nugs? They haven't been consumed yet. There's a reason for that. They're fine. Like the packaging and everything is fine. They have not been consumed yet. No one is aware of their existence yet, but they will be in the coming days. And then I'll report back. That's all I can say about that. Let's see. Chris Fiore, 6349 asks, trade incoming, Sherwood, anyone? Fuck no. Sherwood is not I'll tell you right now, Vancouver, after trading Quinn Hughes to Minnesota, I am not having a conversation with Vancouver. I have no interest. I have a theory. I might be wrong, but I have a little theory. This is not based on any fact. This is not based on any inside information. This is just based on me and thinking as a person who can sometimes be petty. I am not fully convinced that Vancouver didn't ask the Flyers for more assets, right? I even said on this show that up until about a week or so before Quinn Hughes was traded, the Flyers essentially were like, it would take like 5 different pieces, multiple roster players, one of Martone, probably Martone, not Michkov, but probably Martone, at least 1 first-round pick. I think it was going to take them about 5 assets versus what Minnesota ended up trading. I am not fully convinced that Vancouver was going to try to get a higher price out of the Flyers for 2 reasons. One, I don't think they wanted to trade him to the East Coast. They knew that Quinn Hughes, maybe wants to go play with his brothers in New Jersey or wants to go on the East Coast. Not saying that they were trying to stick it to Quinn Hughes, but I'm not convinced they wanted to send him to virtually exactly where he wanted to be. Number 2, let's not forget that Rick Tocchet left Vancouver. The Canucks wanted Rick Tocchet back as the coach for the 25-26 season, and he said nay, and then went and took a job with the Philadelphia Flyers. I'm not saying that Vancouver decided to be petty and say, well, we're certainly not going to trade this player who loved the coach to the coach who loved the player. We are certainly not going to send him there just for funsies after he left us kind of scrambling to find a coach this offseason. We're not going to just send him there for nothing. We're not just going to send him there for the same value. Now, Did the Flyers have a player who's as good or better or projects to be as good or better than Zeev Buium? I'm not so sure. I would say that, like, from the defensive side, no. I mean, if you wanted a lower ceiling guy who's already a proven commodity in the NHL, would a Cam York be intriguing? Yeah. Does he have nearly the same upside? Absolutely not. Rossi, I was kind of hit or miss on. Like, I think anybody could have gone out and tried to make an offer to Rossi in the offseason, but whatever. Like, I looked at that whole trade and just said, I feel like there are teams that probably could have made better offers. It made me wonder, though, did Vancouver kind of look at, man, we don't need to trade our franchise cornerstone defenseman to the coach who abandoned us in the offseason. Again, I'm not positive that that's what happened. I'm not saying Vancouver decided to be petty. Would I blame them for being petty? No, probably not. But maybe, who knows? Let's see. Amadeo asks, is there Ant versus Flyers Twitter tonight? I have no idea. He's gone unhinged. He has. He's gone pretty fully unhinged. James Grasso, 3764 says, Michkov had 2 terrible turnovers on the power play last night. I'm starting to worry. I think Michkov right now looks like a guy who's hesitant. I think he looks like a guy who's now afraid to make mistakes. I would almost argue Michkov right now looks more afraid of making mistakes under Rick Tocchet than he was under John Tortorella, because even though he knew that there were going to be games that he was going to get scratched or benched with torts, I kind of tend to, oddly enough, feel like Michkov might have either had greater respect for or more fear of torts. And he kind of raved about the communication after the fact. And like, I don't know what's going on. It's weird. The Michkov Tocchet dynamic is very, very interesting. It'd be nice to see what happens going forward if we can get a little bit of insight into what that relationship is like. Let's see. Aerator says, I'd love to get Bundy's take on how a player gets to be TK's level of, we just deal with the dumb stuff if they never let them make mistakes on the way up. Check back in on Son of the Goalie later. ZTO Bro says, got Russ on the big screen while working from home. Great game against Montreal last night. Well, thank you. Although if I'm on your big screen, then that means my big old 5 head is also on your big screen. So that's taking up a lot of very valuable real estate, but I appreciate it nonetheless. Let's see. Jeff Rose hates the Philly medical staff, says they've been one of the worst medical staffs for the last 40 years. I think he means that across all teams too, not just one. Let's see. ZTO Bro says Hughes on this team would have been transformative. That being said, getting Risto back feels like a nice consolation prize. Yeah, get Risto back, have him play well, get him the fuck out of town. I don't think are ever going to get to a point where I'd be like, hell yeah, keep Rasmus Ristolainen no matter what. No. I've now watched multiple years where Risto has fielded some significant trade interest from other teams in this league. And then you get close to the trade deadline and whoops, there's an injury. I'm not saying he's doing that on purpose. I'm just saying that there's this very weird correlation between getting close to the trade deadline and Risto's body giving out and then him missing time. I'd get Risto playing some big minutes. And if a team comes by and says, here's a first round pick, we need ourselves a big old beefy right-handed defenseman, have at it, fella. Have at it. I think the blue line was actually playing okay to this point in the season. Risto looked okay last night. I am going to get back in this camp and be a prisoner of the moment and say, oh yeah, we need that big body defenseman. Hell yeah. I'm not so sure. Brianna Torres is here. She just says Phillies. Said it twice. Here's 2 separate comments saying Phillies. We'll take it. Okay. All right. So Foerster's out. That sucks. No one feels great about Tyson Foerster being out. It's sad. It's a bummer. I'm going to try to give you a little bit of positivity on the Flyers side of things. Then we're going to switch gears. We'll go over to the Phillies. We can get to some football stuff as well, because Maxx Crosby, who plays for the Raiders, had a lot of very nice things to say about Philadelphia, and it warmed the cockles of my heart. So I decided that we should probably share it with all of you today. I want to actually go out to something that's very interesting to me, in that you have 2 former first-round picks by the Flyers now playing together, or, they're getting set to play together. Jett Luchanko has the opportunity going forward at World Juniors to play with Porter Martone. And so I wanted to go out to nice little tidbit here from Jett Luchanko about what it's like to play with Porter Martone. And obviously you can think about these guys playing together in the orange and black in the not too distant future. All right, here's Jett Luchanko on Porter Martone.
Jett, a lot of familiarity with you here. First off, Porter Martone, you guys probably trade a little bit of pain at Flyers camp. How nice is it to have him here? And you guys are growing together as professionals as well.
Yeah, it's always cool to have someone that you've known, and I've been on his team for a lot of Team Can events in the past too. So it's definitely cool to have him here, and we've had that experience in Philly together too. So it's great.
Now, would I have liked him to wax poetic about what an absolute beast and behemoth and goal-scoring threat Porter Martone is? Sure. But there's just something nice about those two. The thought of those guys playing together at World Juniors, maybe building a little bit of chemistry, maybe later this season. I mean, could there be a scenario? Could we play out a scenario here where late in the season, the Flyers are in need of a center who's hopefully found himself in much better form from junior and comes up in Jett Luchanko? And then could we find ourselves in a scenario where the Flyers are getting close to a playoff push and they say, you know what? There's a winger that we have in the system who could come up, make an immediate impact, and they bring up Porter Martone. Is there a scenario here, a realistic scenario, where both Porter Martone and Jett Luchanko could be playing on the same line in the spring going into the playoffs? There is. Is that something that should excite you as a Flyers fan? It is. That should excite you. I'd be here for it. Let's see. Ford says that Luchanko looks like a cross between Cole Hamels and Skeet Ulrich. Good God. All right, let's pull up a picture. We all know what Cole Hamels looks like. Let's pull up a picture of Skeet Ulrich. This guy? The actor? You think he looks like a cross between him? I don't know if I see it. I don't think I see it. Maybe there's a different picture out there of Skeet Ulrich that works with Cole Hamels to get to Jett Luchanko. I wouldn't look at this and say like 100%. Ford, you could certainly send me a picture if there's one that you could think of that looks more like him. I don't know if I'd combine that and Cole Hamels to get to Jett Luchanko, but maybe. Okay. Interesting. Very interesting how we all see the world. All right. That's it for the Flyers. Let's go talk, I guess, we'll get to the Phillies in a second. Before we do, I just want to have a moment here where we can acknowledge that another player from another team had a really nice thing to say about the city of Philadelphia. Now, I saw Chris Fried over here getting really, really, worked up because I mentioned Maxx Crosby. Oh, he signed a 3-year deal with the Raiders. Does not get traded anytime soon. That's fine. I don't care. Anytime a player comes into Philadelphia and has positive things to say, I take it as a positive. Not because I think Maxx Crosby is going to try to force his way to Philadelphia, but you think about, well, there has to be like another set of potential trade candidates next season or off season or potential free agents coming up that might feel a similar way to how Maxx Crosby feels. Now, remember, the Eagles absolutely curb stomped the Las Vegas Raiders. And yet Maxx Crosby, well, he had some really nice things to say about Philly. Let's go out to Maxx. Max, how you feeling? And what was it like to play in the city of brotherly love?
Like cities that really have like substance to them and like true fan bases and love for their city and the game. And like going to Philly, like you could feel that energy when you go there. Like there was people everywhere downtown. We stayed right downtown in the thick of it. You know how Philly is. They're rowdy. They're crazy. They're flipping off the buses. Just giving you the bird. Yeah, they didn't give a damn about anything. And then we pull up. We're driving up to the stadium. And I low-key, like, I never do this, but, like, I was driving into Philly. And this is the first time I've ever played in Philly. So that's why I took some pictures. All
right, so let's parse this out first. Because he's talking about the fan base. Fan base is rowdy. Fan base is crazy. They're all over the place. And now we get into the city itself through the eyes of Maxx Crosby.
But I was driving and there's trees and just all white and just fans everywhere in the tailgate. And you could just see the stadium behind. And I took a couple of dope-ass pictures because it's like, this is my first time ever playing there. And it just, like, if you're true, like, if you love football, like, that's what you dream of as a kid, like, playing in Philadelphia in December in a grimy-ass environment. Like, that's exactly what you dream for. So I loved it.
So that's exactly what you dream for, he says, huh? That's the dream scenario if you're a football player. Interesting. Very interesting. It almost makes you wonder, are there other teams that have players out there that would also be intrigued about the idea of playing in a meaningful December game in Philadelphia? I tend to think yes. Yes might be the answer. All right. let's go out to the Phillies because this is where we're going to end the show. I'm a little bit frustrated. Actually, I'm a lot of bit frustrated. So I've said for a while that I find Dave Dombrowski to be pretty insufferable. And I found Dave Dombrowski's plan here the last few years to just be mind-melting. Now, Dave Dombrowski had a decent trade deadline this past season. Harrison Bader was a good pickup. I think Harrison Bader played better for the Phillies than he would over the course of a full season. And I'm not going to fault the Phillies with not immediately going out rushing to sign Harrison Bader, especially if he wanted $15 million a year. And I'm not convinced they're going to bring him back now, obviously, especially considering some of Dombrowski's comments this week. The Juan Duran signing was an absolute home run acquisition because it wasn't just a short-term acquisition. It was a long-term, a guy with years committed, and it's a guy who's arguably one of the best closers in baseball. So you say, all right, cool. That helped to solidify the bullpen. And we'll actually give Dombrowski a little bit of credit here as well because he wasn't done with the bullpen. Because today we found out that the Phillies have actually gone out and they've made another acquisition for the bullpen. And that's none other than Brad Keller, who most recently played for, well, the Cubs. And so maybe you get yourself excited and you say, well, is Brad Keller a good pitcher? Is Brad Keller a good relief pitcher? The answer is yes. He's certainly better than some of the slop they put out on the mound. Is he going to be a transformative addition to this team? I'm not 100% sure. I'm not going to go out of my way and say that this is an absolutely brilliant signing, but I will simply note that, like, if you're going to go off of his stats from this past season, you go, it's a really good get. A 2.07 ERA. I'll take that. I'll take that every single day. Now that is worth noting is the lowest ERA he's had since, what's the lowest of his career? The last time he got even close, like a 2 anything ERA, was 2020. He did that for Kansas City. He had a 2.47 ERA. And that season, he only pitched in 9 games. 9 games. Is he a good signing for the Phillies? Yeah. Is he a good bullpen arm? Yeah. He could end up maybe being your 7th inning guy. Maybe he's your 8th inning guy. Don't actually know like where a guy like a Ryan Kerkering is going to kind of fit in. You would expect that they're not going to want to put him in a high leverage situation early in the season, given how last season ended. Does Kerkering become your 7th inning guy? Is Keller your 8th inning guy? And then Duran is your 9th? If you can have a solidified 7, 8, 9, that's not bad, right? We have all these questions about the rotation. I brought this up with Amadeo on Monday. I'm still concerned about what happens to Ranger Suarez. I'm still concerned if they don't go out and get MI, who they still seem to be very much in the mix for, to add to that rotation. I'm still concerned about what Zach Wheeler is going to look like whenever he returns to this Phillies team. But like from a bullpen perspective, all right, you managed to bring in Keller. He looks like he's going to be a good signing. However, in doing so, you also made the very hard decision to let somebody go. A fan favorite is on his way out as well. Keller in, and unfortunately, that means out goes none other than Jordan Romano. We're going to take a moment here, a moment of silence for Jordan Romano, because as we all know, Jordan Romano was an absolute fan favorite around here. Ladies and gents, can we just really quick, can we give it up here for the lovely, the wonderful Jordan Romano? No. We're not booing. We're happy. We think Jordan Romano was a great player for this team. Totally great. No, he wasn't good. He wasn't good at all. So Jordan Romano's gone, which on its own is a net win for the Phillies. And then bringing in Keller, well, now you've kind of gone. It's almost like you've removed somebody who is absolutely horrific, and you've added a guy who theoretically could be really good, or at least was very good this past season. Feels like the bullpen's better. But I have to get back to the Phillies as a whole, and this offseason so far as a whole. It's been a disaster class. Dave Dombrowski has now essentially committed to March in left field, Justin Crawford in center field, and Adolis Garcia in right field. Now, Garcia is a very good defensive outfielder, so when it comes to him versus like a Nick Castellanos, it's definitely a defensive improvement. Is Justin Crawford a center fielder? No. It doesn't seem like anybody is of the belief that Justin Crawford is a real center fielder. Is Brandon Marsh a center fielder? No. So Brandon Marsh apparently, though, is going to play left field. Crawford's going to be in center, and then you're going to have Garcia in right. That doesn't inspire a ton of confidence. But here's the worst part. If you look at this lineup, right, and you still don't know what's happening with JT Realmuto, this is a very largely like unchanged team. Okay, so you're essentially replacing a guy like Bader with Garcia. You're going to replace, you're replacing Castellanos with Garcia. You're replacing like Bader with Crawford, who you didn't think was good enough to call up at any point this season. Those were two of your moves. As of right now, Alec Boehm is coming back. Bryson Stott is coming back. Obviously, Trey Turner, Bryce Harper. You just made a big money signing, right? Bringing back Kyle Schwarber, because God knows where you'd be without him. There's still no indication that they're bringing back JT Realmuto right now. Pending like an actual trade of any meaning for Castellanos, who it seems like they're begging a team to take off their hands, pending the decision to not bring back Realmuto, or pending the decision to trade or not trade Alec Boehm, this is running it back. Like, even if the Phillies were to go out, say they get Amai, right? Say they get this Japanese pitcher that everybody seems so high on, and they let Ranger Suarez go. That's a 1-for-1 swap out. And Ranger Suarez has been fantastic in the postseason. So, and we don't know what Amaya would look like in the postseason. So, like, I can't even say that that's a significant upgrade right now, right? So you might go 1-for-1 in the rotation. You're getting rid of a potentially not great hitting outfielder who can play defensively in Bader for a potentially okay low contact, or like a not a lot of power in his contact hitter, and somebody who probably shouldn't play center field, and Justin Crawford. I don't get it. I am at a total loss. Even if you look at Garcia is not a totally different hitter than Castellanos. Like, Garcia is going to go up there. He isn't going to draw a lot of walks. He's going to probably hit 20-ish home runs. He's not going to walk a lot. Like, I don't know what Dave's doing. I can't understand it. I don't think this is like Dave Dombrowski playing 4D chess. I think this is the point where you have to have a real conversation if you're a Phillies fan base of like, are we seeing Dave Dombrowski just being a moron? Or are we seeing Dave Dombrowski being handcuffed by the owner now? Like, is John Middleton looking at the bottom line now and saying, I've spent a lot of money. I'm not seeing enough of a return. We haven't gone far enough in the playoffs for it to justify spending even more money. It seems like the Yamamoto money that Middleton wanted to splash when he was available is almost like in a slush fund. That, like, the Yamamoto money, which we had heard was more than what the Dodgers ended up giving him. Well, that money didn't that money just kind of like up and vanished like a fart in the wind, to quote Shawshank Redemption. Like, that money just, poof, it was gone. It didn't go into the rest of the team. So is there like some Japanese slush fund money that Middleton pulls from if a guy does become available? Like, it's crazy to me that the Phillies, like, they're really going to do it. You know, when we heard that, hey, if the Phillies go out and give $30 million a year to Schwarber, it's going to take them out of the Kyle Tucker, sweepstakes. I was like, well, that might be true, but that would be a real shame, because that's an actual impact player who would really help your team. It doesn't feel like they're going to do anything. Maybe there's a trade. Like, maybe there's a trade to come, and that trade is going to be transformative for this roster, and it is going to eliminate any shadow of a doubt that this is not just a run it back year. But as of right now, with this roster as currently constructed, you've gone 1-for-1, Keller in, Romano out. You might go Amai in, Suarez out, though we don't know. You've gone probably Bader, Crawford in, Bader out. You've probably gone Garcia in, Castellanos out. Otherwise, this is like a run it back team, and none of it is significantly better. It's not great. Not great. Amadeo says there's still 2 months left to make moves, but essentially running it back for the time being. That's where the frustration lies. If you're a Phillies fan right now, all right, make the case. Somebody hop in the comments and make the case that this is anything other than running it back right now. Keller could be a really good pickup in this bullpen, but we've seen, like, listen, even when Romano came in, there was the thought that he might be kind of decent and kind of helpful. And he wasn't. The year before, they brought in Estevez. Estevez was really good for the Angels. He wasn't lights out here. Bullpen arms to me are very fickle creatures. Very hard to like get behind the move and feel like it's going to be a no-brainer. But like JT Realmuto, you're in this weird spot where it's like, if you bring him back, you have to hope it's not for a ton of years because he's getting older and older catchers, like it won't work. His bat, he was clutch down the stretch last year for the Phillies. But if he's gone, then that's a total black hole. Unless you're going to make a trade. Who's the trade? What catcher is going to be available that's going to be an upgrade over JT Realmuto from a season ago? Like, I'm not sure. Like, this, to me, is very concerning. And you know what? Brianna Torres, you're right. Phillies. You are right. Phillies. I'm at a loss. I would love to see the Phillies have a good season. I'm having a really hard time believing that this is going to be anything other than like a good regular season team that doesn't get it done in the postseason. At least as of right now. It's still very early. I know that there are people out there who be like, that's still really early. You never know. You never know. I'm not so sure. I'm just not so sure right now that this is a great place to be. I don't know. Maybe I'll bring somebody on to argue about the Phillies. Maybe I'll go out there and I'll find somebody who is blindly loyal to the moves that Dave Dombrowski makes. I don't know. Maybe it's a guy that I host Snow the Goalie with tonight at Chickies and Pete's in Drexel Hill. Maybe I'll give that guy a call and bring him on Friday's show and he can defend this bullshit. But maybe he won't. I will be back on Friday here on the Russ Joy Show. Do me a favor if you haven't done so already. Like the video, share the video, subscribe on YouTube. You can also find the show in both audio and video form over on Spotify. And you can find the show in the podcast feed on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Pandora, Amazon Music, wherever you get your podcasts. I'll be at Chickies and Pete's in Drexel Hill tonight, which I believe is also the fourth night of Hanukkah. For those of you who celebrate, please enjoy. For those of you who are getting yourselves hyped up, Christmas is about a week away. The winter solstice is a few days away, and then we start getting more daylight back, and then it feels like the world is full of rainbows and smiles again. We're getting close, everybody. We are. I promise. I will talk to each and every one of you on a fantastic Friday here on the Russ Joy Show. Until then, I've been Russ Joy, but you knew that already because you're smart, and it's also the name of the show. Have a great day, everybody. I'll talk to each and every one of you very soon here on the Russ Joy Show. Bye now.